Everyone's taller than me. Rudiger laughs.
You'd rather be smarter than taller.
Yeah, I can also turn it. So hi, I think I know most people here. For those that I don't know, hi, I'm Warren Kamari. Day job is Google, but I'm speaking in a personal capacity, as I think is everyone here. Yep. So this is going to be a short sort of panel thing on operators and the IETF. It's actually really a plea for more participation and feedback and help. So, like most large organizations, the IETF has a mission. And the mission of the IETF is to make the internet work better by producing high-quality, relevant technical documents that influence the way people design, use, and manage the internet. The important bit in here is the word relevant. We all know what our networks look like. Unfortunately, we don't know what all of your networks look like. Networks look fairly different. It would be really boring if they were all the same. But if we don't know what your network looks like, and if we don't know what works well in your network, what we end up writing is not going to be relevant and is not going to be very useful to you. So please come and tell us what your network looks like. Back in around 2015, Chris Grundeman, I think I saw Chris lurking in the back somewhere. Hey, Chris. Did a sort of survey of the industry, operators in the IETF, and he got around 350 responses or so. And this was from, people at NANOG and RIPE and Apricot and just sort of generally in the industry. And it identified a couple of sets of issues. Some of them are nice and easy to solve. Things like 8% of people don't know what the IETF does. That's fairly easy to solve. We can provide some guidance on that. 58% of people would like to be able to participate, but just don't know how. Also, 54% of people know that work happens on mailing lists. That means that 46, you see, I can do math, 46% of people don't. Yeah, I know, it's quite impressive, isn't it? Some of the issues that were identified are unfortunately harder to solve. For example, 64% of people don't have enough time to participate. They'd like to, but just don't have the time. More worryingly, 44% of people think that their operator input would not be welcomed. Another thing that we heard a bunch of times is people would like to be able to participate, but just don't have the funding to be able to come to meetings, or once against time. So for doing the easy ones, work in the IETF takes place in working groups, and the working groups are clustered together into areas. I'm Warren. I'm sort of on the ops side of the ops and management area. We have Spencer. Spencer is one of the transport ADs, and then Lee Howard and Jeff, who are both part of the Internet Architecture Board. Hey, down there is Benoit. He's my co-AD. He's on the management side of ops and management, and Elvaro's down the end. So they were doing a quick update each on their areas in a bit. But participation is open to sort of anyone who's interested. And we really mean that. If you're interested and want to participate, please come and do so. As I said earlier, work takes place on the mailing lists. We do have 3 in-person meetings each year, but many people can't manage to attend those. Remote participation actually works really nicely now, and so you can definitely participate, without coming to meetings. Obviously, we'd love it if you come, but if you can't, remote participation works. And down here, this URL, www.ietf.org/about/participate. If you want to know how to get started, follow this link or come and talk to us. After this, we're going to be hanging around outside in the big tent. It's just outside Beer and Gear. We have laptop stickers. Come talk to us and stickers. Again, this URL, but also, feel free to just join some of the mailing lists.
It's not only participation. If you wish, you could present remotely as well.
Yep, join some of the lists. Also, if you have a document that you'd like to write and just want to know how to get started, what you can do, etc., please come along and talk to us. We don't bite. We'll be around all week. And again, you really don't have to attend meetings. join the lists, read some documents, contribute, etc. I know a number of people here already do so. Also feel free to chat with them. And, oh, this slide. So, the IETF has sort of an unofficial motto, which is, we reject kings, presidents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code. Yeah, here's some so, I mean, we're actually making a lot of progress on this. The last couple of IETFs, we've had the IETF hackathons, and we're getting a couple of hundred people coming along and participating. We've got a fair bit of work done in them, large number of projects being worked on. Some of this is sort of interoperability testing. A fair bit of it is also, adding new features to new implementations and also writing new implementations from scratch. A recent one was also doing a bunch of testing on IPv6 transition technologies, identifying stuff like NAT64 issues, etc. And this is the slide that I'd actually thought was next. Ben was going to do a short bit on the management side.
So yes, I'm Benoit. I'm the responsible AD for operations and management. Actually, I've been doing that for 6 years now, and next month I will step down and be happy again. The next AD will be Ignace. Ignace is there, and so feel free to discuss to us, including Ignace. So that's the first thing I want to say. So. Being responsible for operations, typically when I would see a session like the previous one about beer, great protocol, I would be asking, great, but if I can't manage it, well, it doesn't exist for me, right? So do you have something like a Yang model to configure and to monitor this protocol? Otherwise, for my network, it doesn't work. So this is a big part of what we're doing in operations and management, data modeling-driven management. And I presented yesterday on that topic about netconf and RESTconf and how, you should pay attention to how you manage your network with data models and APIs and all this. So what else? There is something I want to discuss for just 1 minute. We've got like a BOF at the next IETF about network slicing. So we want to evaluate whether we have the right problem set, whether the IETF is the right place to work on network slicing, and in this specific approach, they want to work with a top-down approach, right? And so that's something that we want to look at. So speak to us, and if you don't want to participate in the mailing list, at least get the feedback during the evening. I will most likely be at the bar. Beer.
I'm Spencer Dawkins. I come in peace. I am not speaking for the rest of the IETF, nor for my funder, but only for myself. I'm one of 2 transport area directors. And when I say transport, I mean protocols above IP, like TCP. Ian talked earlier today about 2 recent trends in transport protocols. One is user space implementations that use UDP as an encapsulation, and also the increasing use of encryption that covers not only the transport protocol payload, but also significant parts of the transport header for a variety of reasons. Now, there's 2 impacts of these trends. First, user space implementations can change much more rapidly than kernel space implementations. So transport protocol behaviors can change much more rapidly than they have in the past. And any operator practices that rely on looking at unencrypted traffic aren't going to work well on encrypted traffic. And that's where you folks come in, I hope. I have a specific ask for input from operators about what you need in order to monitor and manage networks carrying a lot of encrypted traffic. We're working on ways to at least monitor encrypted traffic in the Internet Protocol Performance Measurement Group, IPPM. And as you'd guess, they're using IPv6 extension headers to carry information through a network without looking at transport headers or payloads. We're at the very beginning of this work, and I want to make sure that we do the right thing. We've been asking for input from operators about networking with encrypted traffic for a while. The Internet Architecture Board held a workshop about this in 2015. But I feel like we still don't have the kind of input that makes me feel confident that the current trend in transport protocols aren't going to cause problems that operators can't solve. So you're all invited to participate in those discussions about this in the IETF. Warren put up the slide about how to do that. If that doesn't work for you, I'm probably the only guy in a pink T-shirt at Beer and Gear, and I'm all ears. Thank you in advance for your help.
Hi, Alvaro Retana. I'm one of the three routing ADs. Routing has three because it's a very big area. We currently have 28 working groups. We do everything related to normal routing, everything that you can imagine, BGP, ISIS, OSPF, things like that. You've heard other topics today and yesterday. Beer came out of the, or is still in the routing area, of course. EVPN, other multicast, the RPKI was mentioned a couple of times. That is work that has been done in the routing area. Beyond the normal routing, MPLS, work around IoT, Ripple, which is a routing protocol for small constrained devices, mesh networks, et cetera. Whatever you can imagine related to routing, we try to do it there. There are a couple of things that I want to point out. I can't go over all 28 working groups, but one of the recurring topics that happens all the time, every time we publish something, a new document, is around security. What about authentication? What about integrity in routing? How is it being used? Who's using it? Why are we not using it, for example? As many of you know, the authentication mechanisms in the specifications are not necessarily up to date. So if you've been following, BGP still specifies MD5, which we know and understand has security issues. So one of the topics that we keep discussing that we are going to continue discussing at the next meeting, which is actually a month from now in London, is around what is needed from an operational point of view in terms of security, both authentication, integrity, but other things as well. And the other thing I want to mention is some of the new work that we're doing in the routing area is around data center routing. So we've noticed that the increase in size and flexibility and trying to reduce operational costs in large data centers makes or forces the need to have a different type of routing protocol than the normal ones that we have today, OSPF, ISIS, BGP, even though those are, of course, applicable as well. So we chartered 2 new working groups that are going to start functioning in London. This is a great opportunity to come in and start looking at something from the ground up. If you try to catch up on some of the other working groups, you're going to find 5, 10, 30 years of backlog sometimes. Here, it's a great opportunity because you can get in on the ground floor. So these 2 protocols are going to be, I'm going to call them hybrid protocols. They're a mixture of distance vector and link state protocols. And the 2 working groups, one is called RIFT, Routing and Fat Trees. Jeff over here is going to be the chair of that. If you have any questions or interest, he can describe the protocol. And the other one is called LSVR, Link State Vector Routing. This is a protocol that are going to use the BGP transport and packet formats and BGP-LS to carry link state information and then run basically Dijkstra over that. So they're both intended to be standalone protocols that are more purpose-built for data center environments. If that is something that interests you, please come to the IETF, or as Warren already said, subscribe to the list, and you can follow all the discussions there, provide your opinion, which is very, very important so that we can design something that is going to actually work and be used by all of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lee Howard. I'm one of 2 members of the Internet Architecture Board, the IAB here. The IAB has basically 2 roles, an administrative role when somebody says, we need the IETF to send us a liaison or appoint somebody to such and such body. We turn the crank on that process. And the other role is looking at larger architecture kinds of concerns and issues. From time to time, we decide that those architectural concerns, the broad, long-term, forward-looking things that somebody needs to be thinking about could be better informed by having a workshop of people who have something to say on a topic. And so we will convene a workshop to say, where is the internet going and where should it be going, and is there work that we need to do to make sure that these things, all these independently developed protocols don't fall apart when we put them together. So we had one that we called eName, explicit naming workshop, that was, it was a more or less a lesser defined problem statement than many of our past workshops around how we identify objects, things on the internet. And so there were issues of different character sets being used for naming and with sometimes overlapping characters, and how names and numbers get resolved in ways other than DNS. So it turned into a really interesting back and forth kind of interactive workshop, more than some of our previous ones have. We have a list of programs, so you can sort of infer from these what they are. We've got a privacy and security program. So programs are how the IAB organizes our work. So and they aren't just IAB members. We include other IETF participants and other people from outside who are not regular IETF participants sometimes, who have expertise that will help us do that work. Privacy and security, stack evolution, like up and down the IP, the protocol stack. The RSOC, the RFC series oversight. We have a technical plenary at almost every IETF, and so we've organized our planning for that into a program. Oversight of liaisons and stewardship of the IANA parameters that IETF interacts with. And then we've recently put forward a couple of documents, and you can go read those. We highly recommend that. And Jeff.
So as you know, IETF is divided in areas, and every area is pretty self-contained. What we do in IAB, we try to take wider look at architectural aspects, at issues such as low latency or visualization that are not only limited to a particular area, but are across low latencies, anything from layer 0 to layer 7. So we publish documents, and I've mentioned two here, that try to provide comprehensive view of particular topic, latency in this case, and contributors to latency and how we deal with it, not only in particular routing or operational area, but across ATF. So if you've got great ideas, come to us. We are open, and we'll be working on it.
Great. So what's next? So as we've said a couple of times, shortly after this, you can't hear me? Better? Okay. Now I can't see the screen. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, we're going to be hanging around outside in the big tent. So just before beer and gear, come along and talk to us. We're all fairly recognizable. What else does that say? Oh yeah, or at any other time. I guess I could also look at the big screen. But you know, specifically, if you have any drafts that you've heard about and you have concerns about them, or you think that they're not going to work properly in your network, or you know, if you think that we need more input. Oh, thank you, Eric. That's so much better. You know, we can provide some information to us, and we can try and take it back to the working group. Or better yet, we might be able to put you in touch with the authors and the working group, and that way you can provide your feedback directly, which always works a lot better. We've also been discussing, if this seems to be useful, having something like a BOF or a track or something similar at future NANOGs, where we can all sit down in a room together and sort of some authors, and we have a lot of people who participate in both spaces, and sit down, discuss, get more information and feedback. And also, if you have any questions or anything else, or questions about the IETF, how to participate, etc., please come along and talk to us. So I asked the panelists to all speak for about 3 minutes. To be honest, I didn't really think that they would keep it to that. So I think we've got some extra time, so we've got lots of time for questions. Or
Hi, Dejan Bogdanovic, and I'm a vendor. And I've been participating in the IETF for many, many years. So one of the things that we have been working in the management groups on the models, and one of the big problem is that we are seeing service models that are mainly proposed by vendors, and we have no idea if those service models are any useful to network operators. Most of the service models that I've seen, if they don't have any network operator input, I discount it immediately because I'm saying this is a vendor pipe dream. But now I will also issue a criticism on some of the IETF process, and this is the document. How, in order, if you want to propose something to the IETF, writing an IETF draft if you have to put a lot of graphics in it, it's painful. I wrote so many stuff in SIP, and writing, the packet exchanges in SIP were one of my most painful experiences ever writing documentation. And that was almost now 20 years ago. Nothing has changed there. Make it easier. I know that has been trying for a long time to update the documentation, but make it easier to submit the initial document, especially when you have a lot of graphics, to do that. And that's what I believe increased participation.
As a matter of fact, we have revised the RFC format, and there will be, SVGs will be allowed in upcoming internet drafts. So if you have a tool that can draw images that way, the other thing that is often convenient is to partner with somebody who has written drafts or RFCs before, who can at least handle some of the XML and dumb formatting tricks for you.
But but that's also, it is a really good point. A lot of stuff is often driven by vendors.
Yeah.
And, your vendors are spending a lot of time building things. If they're not actually what you need, that's not useful. It's a waste of your time and ours. And, code gets built for stuff you don't need. So please, again, come along and tell us what you need. We need your help to build what you need. And I think Rudiger was next.
Warren.
Oh, sorry.
I would like to just answer about the service models, right? I agree that service models done by a vendor is the wrong way to go. We did like 2 experiments in the IETF. One was an L3 VPN service model, and we're finishing up a second one with an L2 VPN. We made sure that they were done by operators only. There is not a single vendor. Okay, go to the mic if you want. Now, the 2 experiments we did were done only by operators. We excluded any vendors out of that. Now, to find those operators ready to work on the L2 VPN, it was quite a challenge, right? So if you are interested to work on those service models, right, speak to us. Now, the device model, as you mentioned, because you mentioned 2 service models out of many device level, right? The device level one should be done by vendors, right? Okay.
Anyone else?
Rüdiger Volk, Deutsche Telekom. Well, okay, I moved to the microphone first to add, I think, a missing piece that Warren should have put in. You mentioned, or someone mentioned, the upcoming short-term London meeting. You might have also pointed to the summer meeting on this continent and the privilege of this continent that it is visited by this traveling circus once a year, which is not true for all the continents.
That's true. If we could move some of the other continents closer, and Australia.
Well, you don't want the seismic and other effects that would have that would cause. The discussions that came up from Dean actually also prompt some comments. Actually, my observations, I should point out also explicitly, I'm an operator, and I have been in the IETF since summer '89. Actually, my observation for the graphs in the drafts and so on is that actually I feel that a large part of what is done in the ASCII art actually should be done rather in symbolic language, in symbolic high-level language, rather than the ASCII art. I have seen too many very complicated proposals where the authors were just completely already taken away by doing the ASCII art and completely losing the sight of the actual semantic concepts. So that's something that I would hope actually the culture in the IETF changes. The other thing is the question about doing the models with operator input. In my environment, I'm seeing that some of the colleagues that actually should be doing that kind of stuff probably could use very serious support on the learning curve to actually transport their domain knowledge into the modeling language. And I'm not sure what really can be done about that from the IETF side, but I think a lot of the distance that we have between what the modeling community actually would like to see from the operators and the other way around is really a consequence of the new technology being really absorbed and taken up and used.
So with regards to data modeling, at least speaking as a routing working group chair, every meeting I try to have 15-20 minutes of just knowledge session on data modeling. How do you do this? How do you combine, thanks to this gentleman over there who's usually presenting, how do you build products using data modeling, putting them together, service model, network model, device model, how do you bind them together? So come to us, at least listen and see. We are trying to explain, we are trying to educate people.
That's really kind of the problem, because the number of people that actually need that education really cannot be expected to show up in any working group or even get the travel justification to the IETF.
Absolutely, Meet Echo is there. We would be more than happy to do this here at NANOG. So every NANOG could be, we could have a slot used for data modeling. And again, you don't need to go to IETF to participate. There's Meet Echo. You could present remotely. You could participate remotely. Pretty much 90% of the work could be done remotely.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to follow up on that. The meetings that we were mentioning, we're going to meet about a month from now in London. In July, it's going to be in Montreal, up north from here. And in November, we're going to go to Bangkok. As we've all said, you don't have to go. You can subscribe to the mailing list. MeetEcho is this really cool tool that you can participate remotely. We have not only the ability for you to see what's happening, participate in live Java rooms and things along those lines, but we've had a number of people present remotely. In fact, several working group chairs have chaired the working groups remotely as well. Another initiative that we have started actually in conjunction with LAGNOG in Latin America has been the ability or not the ability, the idea of building hubs of participation. So the topic of not being able to go to meetings because they're expensive, because they're far away, it's the same for everyone. And so what we've done there is we have promoted local groups. So you get your friends, you sit there, instead of sitting by yourself in your underwear watching the screen, you sit with your friends, hopefully not in your underwear. And, okay, in your underwear, that's fine. And you can now have a community of interest. So you get all the people that want to talk about models. I don't have any friends like that. And you talk. Okay, I have one friend like that. And I'm not going to say.
And there's one more hub in Bangalore and one in Boston.
Yes, so there are remote hubs that we have at least 500 or 600 people participating remotely at each IETF, plus another 1,000 that show up in person. So it happens all around the world, and then it's a nice thing to do when there's a short difference from, we meet in Europe, so there's a short difference, only 5 hours in the case of London from here. Or if we're meeting in North America, then it's a lot easier to participate in most of the meetings as well.
Hi, Jan Federen, Bloomberg LP. So the comment that I have is, so I've been an operator for the last 20 years. I've been following IETF work. It's amazing. There is a lot of progress. But the one thing that's, I guess, the perception that exists is that IETF is ultimately like an organization of, in many ways, protocol developers. Like low-level building blocks are being developed, and we operators put those building blocks together. So it's not that IETF doesn't listen to the operators. It's almost like there is no way for the IETF to be able to listen to the operators. And I wish there would be more, more ways that IETF could come up with that just use the operators. And I don't think that's actually been quite that well developed, because sometimes the operators just can't necessarily fit into the type of work that IETF is doing.
Can I?
Please.
So there are actually several groups in the operations and management area that deal specifically with operations. So yeah, I see two places where it's very important, the input of operators. One is before we do stuff, right, to make sure that we actually do something that's going to be relevant and valuable. And the other one is once we do it and we start getting deployment and operational implementation experience, then it's very important to come back and for us to understand, what's happening and how the protocols are being used and what is working and what is not working. So the operations area actually has several working groups on DNS operations, on routing operations, on V6 operations, of course, on multicast operations, on different things where the drivers of all that are operators. In fact, hopefully Job is going to talk about that because he participates actively in several of those operator groups. And I think, there's work that is being driven out of there.
And on another side, we are trying to cut the amount of time needed to respin, so this version could be respinned in months, not years as before. And they're good examples of that.
Quick comment. The only thing that sometimes seems that's missing is that, yes, there's definitely all those operational group where operational experience can be discussed. But what sometimes seems that what is missing is the ability to take, let's say, protocols that were developed and then try to find and then look at various uses of those protocols, like how to actually put this together, how to integrate it with the existing systems, and that sometimes gets, is not seen as much as it could be.
Thank you. So Job is going to be using you as an example of where things worked well. So try not to throw me under the bus too much here.
To respond to your remark, if we consider IETF as the provider of small building blocks, and then as operators we assemble the building blocks into higher level structures, as we see in protocol design, it is extremely hard to signal from a higher layer to a lower layer. And we will keep struggling with this. I don't expect there is a real solution other than just keep meeting and keep banging heads together. In that regard, the vendors were supposed to be the proxies of the operators, and the vendors were supposed to represent my interests in the IETF and get stuff done. Sometimes that works. I think beer is a good example of that. I don't know why it's called beer in Dutch, but we'll get to that later. But sometimes that proxy function does not work, and then operators show up with pitchforks and push things through. Earlier you mentioned, Warren, perhaps look for help from somebody that's more experienced with writing internet drafts. The invitation I would like to extend to this crowd and beyond, if you have an idea and you can tell the idea just in plain English, you can email either Warren, myself, or Greg Hankins, or there's a number of folks, or the old people. All that is needed is just that you express an idea in English and then transforming that into the XML thing. That's the easy part. So just email us and we'll get going.
And if it's routing related, routing working group is the place. If it's not specifically about SPF, BGP, or anything self-contained, we are open to talk about anything.
So we're very close to out of time. I had one quick question. We'd sort of discussed possibly having something like a BOF or a tracker or something similar in future meetings. If we were to do that, are people kind of somewhat interested? Does that seem like something you might be interested in participating? I guess show of hands or something, or hum or throw things or do a little dance. Okay. Okay, that's good. Good to know. Okay. I think that we're the only thing that stands between you and Berengear now? Or is there?
And some announcements.
And some announcements.
Yeah. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.